If you're sure of.
Hello, Sophia.
Hello, Presido. Welcome.
Yes,
Presido.
Thank you very
Welcome,
much.
sir.
Yes.
So please go ahead.
I think we are looking for.
Sorry?
Go ahead with what?
With the welcome address, sir.
If you're sure of.
Hello?
Yes, Presido, I can hear you clearly. I can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes.
So please go ahead.
Sorry.
Hello, Presido, can you hear me? Okay. Yes, technology.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
Hello, Sophia. I can hear you, Sophia. Do you have two devices on, Sophia?
No, I do not. I do not.
Okay, let me just rush. I'm not in Lagos now. I'm in Bayelsa. So I guess that the network is bad. So let me use this opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, and we wish you well in your applications. Today, we deemed it fit to do this, having gone through the same process. Some of us were selected at the first asking. Others had to apply 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 times before they eventually got it right.
Yes, yeah.
So, do not despair. Listen carefully to the discussions, and a link will also be sent to you for further follow-up discussions. A WhatsApp group link will be sent to you before the end of the day. But one thing I would like to say before I drop the mic, the invisible mic, is please do not limit yourself to this application alone. For this particular program, please, we have some disturbances somewhere. Yeah. Sorry, a second.
Hello, Presido, please unmute.
Having gone through the same process, some of us were selected at the first asking, others had to apply 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 times before they eventually got it right. So, do not despair. Listen carefully to the discussions, and a link will also be sent to you for further follow-up discussions. A WhatsApp group link will be sent to you before the end of the day. But one thing I'd like to say before I drop the mic, the invisible mic, is please do not limit yourself to this application alone. For this particular program, please, we have some disturbances somewhere. Sorry, a second.
Hello, Presido, please unmute.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now? All that was said now, I'd said it before. I don't know what is happening. I don't know why it's repeating. So in essence, please listen carefully, follow the discussions. Do not limit yourself to this application, because on this call alone, others are to apply 2, 3, 4.
Okay, I think we're getting a little technical issues right there. There's a clash between the YouTube live stream and the Zoom. And so I think that's what's going on right now. Okay, so give us a minute, please. All right, thank you so much for your patience. So going forward, I'll be quickly talking about the eligibility criteria. I'll be talking about general information and then the demographic information necessary. So I guess that everyone on this call, you are between the ages of 25 and 35 on or before the application deadline. However, applicants between the ages of 21 to 24 will be considered. So you're eligible for this fellowship between the ages of 25 and 35, but Applicants between the ages of 21 to 24 will be considered. And also, you're not a US citizen or permanent citizen. You're eligible for the J1 visa. You are not an employee, or your family is not an employee of the US embassy or consulate in your country. And you can read, write, and you can speak English well. So if you're a citizen of Nigeria, South Africa, Zambia, Lesotho, and Botswana, you're eligible for this application, and you've never, gotten the fellowship before. So these are just the eligible criteria for this fellowship. Well, I'll just chip in something little here, as with what our president said. He said, do not focus your energy on this fellowship alone, because some have applied once, some have applied like 3 times, 4 times, So this is not, you should not just put your focus on this fellowship. And also a disclaimer that this session is just to give you an idea of how you can, make your application stand out. We are not as a body saying that you definitely get this fellowship. All right. So this is a disclaimer from us saying, no, we're not saying that you're going to get this fellowship. We're only saying we're going to give you tips on how to make your application as a person stand out. So without further information, please, I would like to introduce Jonathan. Jonathan is a 2022 Mandela Washington Fellow, and the interesting thing about Jonathan is below 25, and it would talk to you more about tips on the question of your major, like the first application question that asks about your professional experience. So Jonathan, kindly take the stage. Thank you.
Hello, Sophia. Hello all. So I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can.
Okay, the audience just confirm. Hello?
Hi, I can.
Yes,
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you. We can see you. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, that's great. Already a few minutes ago, but thanks to the technical difficulties, I had enough time to get set. Our question, I looked at the question for this year, and then I compared it to that of last year. There is a bit of difference, but it's just on grammar. There are technical things. So for 2023, the question says provide an overview. So I'm starting with the essay. Yeah, the first essay says provide an overview of your major professional accomplishments from the past year, as well as your long-term goals and aspirations. What motivates you to work in the field that you do? Now, this is the question that we got during our own application. It said, please give a brief description of your major accomplishment within the last year and your long-term goals and aspirations. Why have you chosen this work? So comparing these 2 questions, we can pick out some key points. We have accomplishments. We have the past year, so it has to be recent. Whatever it is you're putting has to be recent. And then we have long-term goals and why the WH questions, the why you do what you do, or what motivates you in the field that you work. So why are they asking this question? You have to understand the motivation behind questions like this to even know how to go about it, right? So first of all, they want to know that you are taking your work personally. It's beyond just the money for it. The difference between the Mandela Washington Fellowship and maybe any other venture capital or angel investors is that those people are more concerned with your profits, your business model, and just things in that line. But Mandela Washington Fellowship is more concerned with the impact you want to make. So why are they asking this question? They want to know that you're taking it personal. Now, if you're an investor, right, and you want to invest in the medical field, and you have this doctor, you want to invest in a cure for cancer, you have this doctor that has a mother living with cancer, And then you have another medical doctor that is just working in cancer because he likes the idea of it. Now, who would you likely give your money? Of course, the person that has a mother living with cancer, it's more than just a job for him. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Yes, we
All right.
can.
So back to my analogy. The first medical doctor is more than just a job to him. So whether or not he gets your money, he's going to look for a way to get a cure to cancer, right? Because it is personal to him. He has a mother living with cancer. He has to do everything possible to get that cure to cancer. So in the same vein, when you're writing your AC, you have to show to them that it's beyond just the financial model. It's beyond just the cost. It's beyond just the profit. It's more. It's something that you hold dear to you. It's something that you can connect to personally. So you have to portray that empathy, that connection to what you do that is beyond just money. Then it's they need a sort of a collateral grant. So they want to know that this thing you are doing, you are in it, whether or not you get into the fellowship. Because just like they always say, they are not picking you to make you leaders. They are picking you because you are already a leader. So you have to prove to them that you are already doing something relevant to this your connection, that Mandela Washington is just an extra. Whether or not I get Mandela Washington fellowship, this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm going to keep doing till I get that end product. So it's beyond just the money. So how do we answer the question? The first, you start by telling a story. No, the application is reviewed by human beings, and that is a disadvantage. But the other advantage is that it's reviewed by humans. So what do I mean? People get bored easily, right? So when I have 100 applications to review, it's easy for me to get bored. Now, why is that an advantage? When someone that is bored jumps on an interesting story and you cure that boredom, you are very likely to, pass through the application. So you have to leverage on that. Don't just say what you do, but you have to structure it in sort of a story form that makes the person reviewing it interested really in what you're doing. All right. So we usually, if you've read about essay writing and things like that, you heard about the STAR technique, the STAR. Sophia, please remind me if I'm almost done my time, so I can just round off. So yeah, we have the STAR technique. So the first thing you do, you start with the situation. Remember, the question says provide an overview of your major professional accomplishment. Professional accomplishment. So when you want to write about that, you're starting with the situation. And what I mean by situation is start with a problem, like the scenario you found yourself, the task, what was required to solve the problem, the action, what did you do, the result, what was the new improved reality, your action cost. So I'm going to go through that again. You just all every story I talk, it helps you to keep your story within the boundary of what is asked of you. So you are starting, it's the start technique, the situation, the task, the action you took, and then the results, right? So you want to start with the problem. And if you're into creative writing, you know that a story is always as good as the opener. So what is required, the problem you face that caused you, that provoked you into doing what you do, right? So bring it down to your professional accomplishment. Let's just say I have a bit of an exposure in finance. I have a bit of an exposure in export. So I'm just going to give a sort of a mock sample of what is expected in a major professional accomplishment. And just before I jump on that, you have to know that your major professional accomplishment, it doesn't have to be you getting a certification. It doesn't have to be you going to school or winning an award. It could be how you help your organization survive the pandemic. It could be how you help your organization cut costs. It could be a media or publicity activity you did to bring a lot of publicity to your organization. It could be just anything that put took your organization from this point to this point. So let's say your sorry, let me just sorry about that. I'll just continue.
All right, we understand. Welcome to Nigeria. So please kindly wait.
Sorry,
Okay,
sorry,
yes,
that was
welcome. Welcome.
so yeah. You can start with your business. What problem did it have? If I'm doing a business that requires me to, import or export goods to another country, during the pandemic, the barriers were closed. So you have to show this particular person the dilemma, the extent, everything is shutting down. You can't export. Your international clients have cut off ties with you. People are locking down, and then you just started this business. It's less than 2 years. You needed to establish some connection with some clients and all, and then the border just shut down. And then you have your warehouse packed with raw materials you intended to export, right? So what do you do at this station? Elwin is giving me a thumbs up. Elwin, I work with Elwin once. So yeah. So what do you do at this particular stage? So you've created that dilemma. You've put the person reviewing it in your situation. He's as confused as you are. So what does this guy do right now? He's doing an export business, and then the borders are shut down, and he has his warehouse loaded with truckloads of raw materials he intends to export. So you've gotten the person's attention with such a big problem. So that is the situation. So we go down to the tax. So the people might confuse the tax and the action because they look like the same thing, but they are really not. So the tax is what is required to be done for this problem to be solved. And then the action is what did you do? So over to the tax, the raw materials in the warehouse must be exported out for them not to depreciate in value. So it must leave the warehouse regardless of what happens. So what did you do? You can't take that raw material outside, right? So you have to figure out a way to turn this tons of raw material into mini packages that you could sell in supermarkets, that you could deliver to people, just sell indigenously without having to export it. So you've taken that problem that was like this and you have broken it into this. So what is the result? As a result of this, you were able to create another means of income flow for your company that even after the pandemic, you still you still remain in that particular model. So Sophia said I have just 1 minute. So that is just the rundown of what an application should look like. You start with the problem, the situation. You make that person, put him in your position. Forget the jargons, the jargon words, the things that doesn't really make sense to people, right? In your field. If you're into tech, there are a lot of things that probably don't make sense to generalists. So you just use the basic words, the terminology that the person can relate to, paint the task, paint the action, paint the result. And then finally, Sophia, give me 1 minute. There's what we call development, right? So if you want to say that we fed poor people. Someone said, "I'm not hearing anything." Has that been the situation all through?
No, I can
No,
hear.
not at all. We
I can
can hear
actually
you.
hear you.
So I'll just round off with this. So impact development. If you want to say, I fed 10 people, I fed some people in the rural areas, or I just fed the hungry people. It doesn't strike as hard as saying that I was able to create a means of feeding for about 100 people in the rural community during the peak of the pandemic, which helped them survive, or which helped them build immunity against the probable contagions. So for every sentence you are writing, you have to think of the number between that sentence, the how between that sentence, and the results. So the numbers, how many people did you impact? How did you do it? And then the result. So for every sentence you're having, you enrich it with these terms. So I think that's all. If there's any other thing you would want to ask, then I'm open for about 2 minutes to take maybe a question, even contributions from the other panelists, and then we'll move on to the next discussion.
So are there any other questions? Okay, so if there are none, I'll just would move to the other panelists, and
Sorry,
I
I
would
have a
also.
question. I have a
Oh,
question.
okay. I think I'll just take you. Okay, quickly shoot, please. Just you.
Okay.
my question is, in case you want to like tell your story, or like, is there a need for, like, can you add a link to probably show what you've been doing or what you've done? That's my question.
Yeah, the in ACEs, I would advise you just stick to ACEs, to words. There will be, I think there's a link, a part of the application where they'll ask you to additional work, add some links. I think I added a newspaper link of an article I published at some point. So there's another place for that. There's other attachments, other documents to validate your application. But for ACEs, I'd advise you stick to just writing, because nobody will click that link. They'll probably print it out and read it. So yeah, just stick to the words, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Franklin. Thank you, Franklin Jonathan. Thank you. All right. So quickly, I would just say, tell your story and be genuine with your story. So if your story is growth, you have to show how that you have done certain things to ensure that you grow as a person, or in your personal development or professional development. So quickly, I will call on Frida Anyanwu. Frida Anyanwu she's a CEO of EBH Africa. Please kindly take the stage.
Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Frida. Ooh.
How you doing? Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this session. I'm pretty sure you would get a lot of knowledge to be able to apply to the best of your ability. Like Sophie said before, this is not an opportunity to say, oh, because I attended this session, there is a chance for me to be selected, right? You have to do the work. You have to put in the work. You have to write a good essay. And this is why we're taking out time to be able to show you and guide you through the whole process. So yeah, Franklin mentioned earlier that this year, the questions are a bit different, and that's just because most of them were rephrased, most of them were, tweaked a bit, because to get a type of response from last year's. And I'm going to be taking the side where you have to connect your skills that you intend to get from the fellowship or through the fellowship in line with your track of choice, the choice that you have chosen. So the fellowship allows you to select one track, but there are 3 different tracks to choose from. So you choose either business and entrepreneurship, public management, or civic engagement, depending on the work that you do, or depending on where your interest lies in. And I am into business, so pretty much if you're going to be hearing everything I'm saying, you'll be hearing it from the angle of business. But I'm going to share with you how you can be able to write an essay that, in terms of the skills you intend to get through the fellowship. So the question here for this year says, based on your understanding of your preferred institute track of study, what skills and knowledge do you hope to gain from the fellowship that will not be able to develop through other opportunities, that you would not be able to develop through other opportunities? How will you choose these skills and knowledge to enhance your activities in your community within the next 3 to 5 years? Now, what this generally says is, even if you've been through maybe other applications, or you've gone through maybe business conferences, business session, accelerator programs, what will make this fellowship stand out to you? What particular skill do you think this fellowship will be giving you? What value do you think this fellowship will be bringing to you? Now, this is where you have to be really authentic. You have to look deep down into the work that you're doing, or the work that you intend to do. And then you have to look at the skills that you have now, and what kind of exposure you would get when you go for the fellowship and then you return back. Now, your story is very important. Franklin had a very great explanation when he mentioned something about putting impact, putting figures. I talked about that yesterday on a session with people, to say you need to have your story intact, but it's not great to have a good story without figures. And also, you need to also attach those stories or your experiences to the sustainable development goals. Let me just chip that in now. You need to say, if this is the business I'm doing, my business is going to be able to expand, and then I can employ more people, and that is also part of economic development and reducing unemployment, because if my business is expanding based on I have improved my knowledge and my skills, I will be employing more people. So more people off the streets will be reducing unemployment. So that's another way you can be able to attach that into your story. So it's not just what you have done, is also showing that you have a plan for future. It also shows that you have plan for, like, you have plans to be valuable when you get back to Africa. So what skills are you going to learn? So for me, what I wrote last year was in line with my track of study, which is business and entrepreneurship. I'm looking to understand more about international fundraising. So for example, if I want to be able to connect with investors internationally, I want to do put my business on a global platform or on a global scale to be able to expand more than what we already had at the time. The fellowship will give me that opportunity to not just learn, but also provide me the network. I also talked about market expansion techniques, because my business is EBH Africa, and what we do is we create an opportunity where African businesses or African entrepreneurs can now build more sustainable businesses in Africa. So if we have an idea, or if I, the founder, have an idea about market expansion techniques, it will help me to be able to channel that into helping other African entrepreneurs into expanding their markets across Africa. So we want to be able to build an international ecosystem where Africans can expand their businesses across Africa to other parts of the world, to the US, to the UK, to the Europe. That was one of the things I was looking out for. So I put it there that I want to learn these things, so that if I'm exposed to the network of people who can say, okay, well, let's work together to be able to take African businesses or the products from African entrepreneurs and put them in a market, in an international stage. That's a great one, because if I've learned that, I'm adding that value not just to me, but also to the people who I am going to be serving with my business. So if you are into, let's say, an NGO, for example, think of something that is beyond what you have right now, and then put it to say, I want to learn this so that it can help me. I saw someone ask a question about teachers. How can teachers put their self for impact? Let's say you are a public school teacher, for example, or you are just a private school teacher, but you are a teacher. You are also in line with the SDG that talks about education. So if you go about to say, I want to be able to learn educational policies to foster a strong or sustainable educational system back in Africa or back in my community that will help more children to be able to access quality education, that's a skill, that's something you need to have. You can't have that when you're in Africa, because you will need to have exposure. You need to have global exposure. Maybe by the time you fill your application and they send you to a school, or maybe you do a PDE somewhere, and then someone says it's not hearing. Can everybody hear me? Or it's just you? Maybe you
Yes,
should
I can hear you.
log out.
Yes, we can hear you. Can hear you.
Great. Please, if you are following what I'm saying, and what I'm saying is interesting, please put it in the chat box. I want to be seeing the comments.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yes, so that I can see that you're following as well. So, in line with your work, with the impacts that you want to create. Let's say, for example, you have a food business. All right, I'm going to share this because it's very important. Many people don't know how to structure their businesses with the impacts that they are creating. You have a food business. In a day, let's say you cook the food and you can feed about 100 people. You make sales to 100 people in a day. That's value for yourself. That's a food business. You're fighting something about hunger, zero hunger. Attach it to that SDG, right? And say, I want to be able to learn more techniques so that I can grow my business and start having, several food points or food trucks so that we can be able to create more avenues where people can have food or have easy food supply. Or we are fighting food security. We are working towards food security. We want more people to have healthy meals. We want more people to understand that they know where their food is coming from. And food security is one of the problems that we have in Africa. If you put that, see, after this, go and learn the SDGs, right? And understand where your business is. So my business is in line with economic development, which is SDG 8. And sometimes we put it that no poverty because we said no poverty because when we help more businesses to become sustainable, they can increase their standard of living, which is also one of the sustainable development goals. And then once they can increase their standard of living, we can help more people to reduce poverty in Africa. So that's how you can channel it. So if you say your skills, I want to learn how to raise funding in the international market, how the international system works. One of the things I also put there in part of the things I want to learn is understanding the American economy and how it affects, how it affects entrepreneurship. Because I'm also helping entrepreneurs. I need to understand how America's economy is affecting entrepreneurship and enterprise development. So it will help me to be able to create a system that will work for entrepreneurs in Africa. Now, this is what you need to do. These skills, you need to understand that they're not just helping you. Franklin, I've already mentioned before, your story has to be in line with the impact, and it has to be in line with the figures. So let's say you have, I'm trying to wrap up. Let's say you have 500 people that your project or your business or your community, whatever you have working on, you have 500 people that is impacting already. Now imagine that you go in and you expand your knowledge and you expand your experience and you expand your skills. Imagine how you would increase the number of people that you would be helping. If by this low level, let me put it low level, knowledge, at this basic level knowledge that you have already, you're reaching 500. Imagine when you already have an international experience, a global experience attached to the knowledge that you have currently, you'll be doing so much more. So that's it. If you have any other concerns or you're not clear on it, I'm available to, I'm not saying I'm available to help you write your essays. I'm available to guide you through how you can channel your business and your experiences to that question. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Frida. Thank you so much. So thank you for the insightful tips, because actually I was so much into your tips that I forgot the time. It was later on I realized. Thank you. Okay, so I would like to just chip in few tips, as I know I'm the moderator, but as ideas come into my mind, I would share. So another skill to learn is practical networking skills. It gives you an avenue to meet people, not just US based, not just US citizens, but Africa as a whole. You get to meet people in Africa. And another tip is to read each track. So for each track, if you're in the business track, read it, research, learn about it. If you're going for public management, learn about it as well. And if you're going for civic engagement, learn about the things they say they will teach you. Don't write outside of what is in their explanation about the track. So understand the track. You can even take a few points from the track, but you paraphrase it. That's what I did. I took few keywords and paraphrased it. So it showed that I had research about it and I know what I wanted and what I wanted to learn. So quickly would go, if you have questions, please kindly put them on the chat box. And yes, let's make this very engaging. Comment as a speaker is speaking, and then we'll get back to you. Thank you so much, Frida. So yes, we have another speaker, Dr. Kede Ibiang. So she's going to tell us more about the what makes the Mandela Washington Fellowship. So key values about the fellowship. So Dr. Kede, take the stage, the virtual stage.
Thank you, Sophia. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'll be taking the third question. Like Franklin said, it's this year they were rephrased just a little, but the key point is the same. So this question talks a lot about community service and public service and in what ways you have. I'll just read the question out. Nelson Mandela once said, a fundamental concern for others in our individual and community lives will go a long way in making the world a better place. So we so passionately dreamt of. Public and community service are essential responsibilities for leaders. What changes or other improvements do you hope to implement in the communities that you engage through your work? How are you working towards these goals now? And what else do you hope to accomplish in the future? Last year when we applied, it was slightly different. I have it on the screen here, but it just said public and community service are essential responsibilities for leaders. What communities do you most hope to reach and engage to accomplish in the future? Same question. The first thing I'll say is that your passion has to shine through your response. They need to see that you are passionate about this work that you are doing. I'm a doctor and I work in public health. So I work a lot with communities, key populations, internally displaced people, women and girls, people with disabilities, people living with HIV/AIDS. I made sure to spell this out. So my response went something like, I'm passionate about providing this service to people living in interior communities, low resource communities, women and girls, people with disabilities, and all of the other key populations that I work with. So I laid that down as a foundation. This is what I'm passionate about. And that's the way that I provide community service to the communities that are around me. That is my way of public service. And then I went on to say what I have done. So they asked how you provide community service. That's what the passion spoke about. Then what have you done so far in providing this community service? And I spoke about the projects I have worked on providing gender-based violence response delivery to interior communities and other key populations. I spoke about providing sexual and reproductive health services to these communities. I spoke about the work I do online on social media. I used to write a lot, not very much anymore, but I used to write a lot about gender equality, gender-based violence, sexual and reproductive health, and other things just around public health. I mirrored in on this because you have to be specific. So I mentioned these services that I have provided and how I have provided them. And then the very last part of the question that said, what do I hope to accomplish in the future? So like Frida mentioned, I think Frida and Franklin mentioned, numbers are very important. You don't just come and say, we've reached many women or we've reached many girls. What is the estimated number of girls and women that you have met or that you have provided service to? So I said, okay, I have reached this number of hundreds of women, thousands of women, and what do I hope to accomplish in the future? I hope that within the next 6 months or 1 year, whatever your timeline is, but put a timeline to it. I hope that within the next 6 months, I am able to reach 1,000 girls in this part of Nigeria, in this kind of community, to provide this service to them and blah, blah, blah. Something very important with goals is that goals have to be smart. So smart as per, they have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be achievable, they have to be realistic, and they have to be time bound. I've already touched on the time bound aspect where I said I want to provide this within the next 6 months. Specific, this is the service that I am providing to this community in this country, in this region of Africa. Measurable, I said I want to reach 1,000 women and girls. So I am keeping my numbers to make sure that I am able to, I can measure my impact, so you understand. And then achievable, I'm not telling them that within 6 months, I want to reach 5 million girls in Nigeria. It's almost impossible, except I have structure set up in all 36 states, but I do not have that structure. So you keep it measurable and at the same time, make sure that it's achievable and it's realistic. So it is not an impossible task for me to reach 1,000 women and girls within 6 months. If I break it down to just a couple of states and say I want to reach 200 or 300 girls per state, I am easily able to reach 1,000 girls at the end of the day within 6 months if I have projects working in all of these states. Realistic and time bound. I already mentioned timing. You have to put a timing to it. There's something about answering questions, and there's a phrase that my mentor keeps talking about, and I'm going to say it here. Some is not a number. So when you say, I hope to reach some women and girls, who is some? What is the number that you want to reach? Hope is not a plan. You cannot say, I hope to do this and that. Give a little insight as to how you intend to do it. I will work with so and so to bring this project to life. I will get in touch with blah, blah, blah. I spoke about how I intend to collaborate with other organizations who also work in this space to bring this idea to life. And so I said, what? Some is not a number, hope is not a plan, and soon is not a time. Still borders on timing. How and when? So I say I want to do this within the next 6 months. That way I am able to monitor my project and be sure that I am on track. So if within 3 months I am able to reach 500 or 500 and something women and girls, I know that the project is on track. Our timeline is, we're still keeping to our timeline because that is half the time and we've reached above half the number that we intend to reach. So by the time we're getting to 6 months, I should have reached 1,000 women and girls. That's a brief overview of how to attack that question. Your goals must be specific, they must be measurable, they must be achievable, it must be realistic, and it must be time-bound. And you have to show passion for the work that you do. What have you done? How have you done it? They want to see that you are doing something with this small, in quotes, the small that you have now, you are doing something with it. So we want to magnify that work, we want to amplify that work, we want to multiply your efforts so that you're able to reach a larger number of people, probably within the same time frame as if you were working on your own and you would have been reaching a small number. I will stop here if there are any questions for that particular.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kede.
I'll just let you pick if we can answer the question.
Okay, yes, there are questions from the comments. Honorable Solomon. Okay, Honorable Solomon asked the question of, he's a 7 local government councillor and a CEO of a business, and he's quite confused on which track he should pick since he have great accomplishment in those tracks. What's your advice?
Okay, I'm happy that question came now. So I run a business and I'm also a doctor. So I could have picked business track or civic engagement, but what I did was to focus on one. You have to pick one, to be honest. I looked at what my business is doing and what I am doing in public health and how I could relate that to the sustainable development goals. My business is my passion, yes, but I wasn't very convinced that I could draw out how this contributes to the achievements of the sustainable development goals. It does contribute to economic empowerment and eradication of poverty, but I don't think they were very strong points. So I focused on civic engagement, which is my work in public health. That contributes to sustainable development goal 3, goal 4, and goal 5 very explicitly. So I'm working on gender equality, I'm working on providing good health and well-being for all, and I'm also doing something in education, so sexual and reproductive health education for young girls and women. So it was easy for me to make my points bearing that in mind as compared to my business where it is passion and I like to do it, but how does it relate to the sustainable development goals and what community service comes out of this? I couldn't put that point. So maybe try putting 2 documents together. Put down what you have on public management and put down what you have. I don't know what the other track you talked about was, business, I think. So put down both of them, answer the questions on a Google document for both of them and tell yourself the truth. What is a stronger essay? What is a stronger application? I'll pick that.
All right, thank you so much. I would like to go to YouTube, there are questions here that says, can I use a field that I'm still learning or studying to write my essay? Someone is asking if she can use a field she's currently learning and, studying for her essay. Another question says, how can I write on my professional experience, like in a third person pronouns?
Okay.
So those are the questions
if
from
you are
YouTube.
If you are still learning, you have to prove your accomplishments. What have you done while you were learning? The skills that you have gotten while learning. How have you practicalized those skills? And in what ways have you used those skills to affect your community and people around you? So use that to craft your application. I was speaking to someone on LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn or Instagram, one of them, a medical student from one of the other African countries got into Mandela Washington Fellowship. This person has not started practicing medicine yet, per se, but got in. So there was a track record of what this person has done. The person had done some public health outreaches, had served on communities, and you could see that this person had something to talk about and then something that they can amplify via the fellowship. So how has your work as a student or an intern, how has it contributed towards providing services to your community or just, giving community service?
All right, thank you. There are questions in our Zoom chat. Yes.
Okay.
So
yeah, I see one talking about nonprofits who distribute sanitary pads to girls for free.
Yes,
That's
the
civic
one I
engagement. Yes, that's civic engagement.
I think a question is, when you're asked what sector do you work in? I think that's the question she's trying to ask. So under what sector?
You're in the non-profit sector.
You're in the non-profit.
You're in the non-profit sector, public health non-profit. So yes, public health non-profit.
Okay, so we'll pass the questions here. Thank you so much. We'll pass the questions here and we'll allow other speakers to present, and then they will attend to your questions. Thank you so much, Dr. K-Day. Thank you. So I will be calling on Zugwe. Zugwe is also a 2022 Mandela Washington Fellow, and she would also share on the next question about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you, Zigwe. Kindly take the virtual stage.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, everybody, for honoring the invitation and coming to hear us share. So I'll be talking about diversity, and for this year's question, it says the Mandela Washington Fellowship values diversity, equity, and inclusion, and strives to reach diverse audience through all programming. What do these values mean to you, and how do you exemplify these values in your professional or personal life? So first, I would say that all they're asking you is, do you understand what inclusion means? Do you understand what diversity means? Do you understand what equity means? And aside the general explanation of what these terms mean, what do they mean to you? And then what's your focus when it comes to all of these terms? So I would start by saying, I don't want to assume that everybody understands what these terms mean. So I would love you to do your research, but I'll also share. So first, I would say that diversity has to do with involving different people. It doesn't matter what background you're from. It doesn't matter what class you're from, whether social or ethnic backgrounds. It doesn't matter the gender, your social or sexual orientation, your religion, your age, or even people with special needs. It has to do with involving everybody and being able to engage people from these different backgrounds. Then secondly, equity has to do with so equity has to do with pretty much justice, being without bias or favoritism, and treating everybody equally. inclusion has to do with providing equal opportunities. It has to do with providing access, equal access to people without, especially people who would on a normal day be seen as the minority or marginalized group. So whether it's business track, public management, or civic engagement, diversity, inclusion, and equity relates to everyone. How do you do your business? Is your business located in an area where you're not so familiar with? Have you gotten a job in a place, or are you intending to take up a project in a community where you're not so familiar with? Let's say maybe you're from the South, you've been posted to the North, you've been posted to the West or the East, or you even had to travel outside the country to work in a different country that is not yours. How were you able to engage with people within that community? How were you able to relate with them, not just for your own benefit, but for theirs? How were you able to translate whatever task you had to carry out to those people effectively? What were the channels or the tools that you provided to ensure that that was smoothly done? So, for example, I'm going to be specific with something that I did. I was on a project and I was posted to a different part of Nigeria where I had never worked before, and where there are very, very unique diversity. So from religion to language barrier to people with special needs and so many other things. So for me, I had to think of different things. What was the level of involvement of women and young people in the kind of work that I was doing? How was I going to increase that level of involvement of women and young people in the work that I was doing? The language that I was going to use, are the people going to understand me effectively when I'm communicating with them during engagements or training sessions and all? Did I need to get an interpreter? Did I need to translate the materials that I was using to communicate with these people to languages that they could understand? If there are people with special needs, what were those things that I put in place, whether it's hearing aids or for people who couldn't see, things that could make it easier for them to read or to understand whatever they had, documents they had access to. If it's a venue for an event, what did I consider in picking a venue so that it's accessible for people? So there are just a lot of things you have to think about. So first of all, you have to show your understanding of what these terms mean: diversity, inclusion, and equity. And then you have to give specific examples of how you've been able to demonstrate that. For people who have, because I've seen people say, oh, business, how would I do that? Public management, how would I do that? There are different things. So in your schools, do you have people with special needs? How are you able to help them or support them to ensure that they have the same access to opportunities that you have? Have you ever been in a place, and I'm saying this because they are very particular about this question, because we all know that the US is very diverse when it comes to inclusion. It's very emphasizing on inclusion a lot, and when it comes to diversity, they are they take it very seriously, and it goes beyond even the things that we consider as diversity or issues that we bring up when we talk about inclusion in Nigeria. It also even goes to our sexual orientation. If you had to be placed in a community where you had people with different sexual orientation than you, let's say maybe LGBTQI communities, how do you relate with them? So you have to consider all of this when you're writing your application and also speaking to your examiners. I just wanted to also explain, so that's it for me talking about all of this. There were some questions that came up while the other panelists were speaking. I just wanted to address some of them. So someone talked about how they were doing different things, different businesses or different aspects of health work, and how were they going to, which they're going to use, and how they were going to project these things. So the thing is, we also have to be very careful not to tell different stories. I know some of us are doing 1,001 things, and it's amazing. It's good. It's not a bad thing at all. But people want to see that there's a focus in this particular application. They want to see you on a journey. So for every question you answer, from the first question that was addressed by Franklin up until Dr. Kede and myself, let there be some kind of linking the job that you're doing. Let them see a reflection of the job you mentioned in question 1, in question 3, 4, and 5. So don't start saying, oh, I worked with this one in sport, and then you move to public health, this, and then you move to, people will be confused. So even if you're talking about sports and public health, let it link, let it be the same story you're telling at every point, and you're just making reference to it. That way it shows progress, and it shows sustainability, and it shows that you have a goal and there is something you're actually looking forward to achieving at the end of the day. Then to also make it clear for those of us who still do not have an understanding of what the tracks are about, public management for MWF is pretty much people who have worked in the public sector, ministries, civil service, governments, that it is. Then for civic engagement, anything to do with non-profit, NGO, volunteer, those kind of things, that's civic engagement. Business, as long as you are buying and selling, you are making profits, that is business. So it makes it easy for you to know where you fall into. That's it for me. Any questions? I'm open to answering.
Thank you so much, Zugwe. You really talked about diversity because, yes, as you said, US is a very diverse place, and it requires people who are open-minded and who can live through the diversity with, yes. So I'll look through the questions, through the chat rather. So there's a question from Delia Johnson. She asks, please, there's a question, provide an overview of your major professional yes, you can still ask, you can still answer these questions, Zugwe. My work focused on public health, like the last speaker. It has mostly been from 2018 to 2020. I didn't have much outreaches or public health works last year. Can I talk based on those 2 years experience?
Yes, please. You can talk. It doesn't matter what year your experience was in. What's most important is that there was work that was done. There was a problem, you provided a solution, and there's a result to show, an impact to show for the action that you took. As long as you can tell people, and it even gives some sort of credibility, because it means that you've been doing this for a while. So it doesn't matter. Everybody understands that it's not all the time that you get the opportunity to do certain things. And as much as you're saying you did this work in 2018 and you've not been able to do any, I'm also still sure that you've had opportunity of doing some little work. Please do not underestimate any work that you do. Don't think anything is too small to share. Anything that you know has impacted people, share it. Don't ever underestimate any work that you do. Then somebody asked, sorry, Sophia, if social enterprise is under business. Yes, anything to do with making profit. Social enterprise is business.
Yes.
Civic education is what do you call it? Civic engagement. But again, teaching, it depends on what you're doing also. So teaching, sensitization, awareness, all of those things can be civic engagement with people. It depends on how you couch or project your responses.
Okay, I'd like to chip in, Professor. So you talked about economic civic engagement, research, energy, and climate change. I would say it falls under public management, sir. I think it falls on, because it talks about, so when you read the public management, when you read what constitutes the public management, it talks about policies. There are policies that it talks about. And in my institute, I could remember that there was an energy expert, and then there was a topic that talked about the policy in energy. So it could fall under public management, and it could also fall under civic engagement. But for energy and climate change, it's a policy. So it's about policy making. So I think it can fall under public management. It really just depends on how you craft it to fall under those tracks. Another question says, if an applicant hopes to join the public service but is currently working on civic engagement, how can two be related in the essays? Okay, so I think you can talk about your current, your civic engagement right now, and then the current, and then the future actions you hope to make, and how that the public management track would be a necessary skill since you're transitioning, if you understand. So for me, I was actually working in the civic engagement, but because I was going into the public management space in few years, I opted for public management, and then I explained how those the lessons or the skills I would learn in the public management track would be to my advantage. So I chose public management because of where I was going to in 2-3 years time. So there's a question on YouTube. It says, how long does this program last? What if I have plans to go somewhere else around September next year? Will it affect? Do you advise I should apply? Yes, please apply. The program is for 6 weeks. Yes. And if you're going somewhere else, you can go. Yes, it doesn't affect you. However, there is a 2-year residential policy that applies to the J1 visa that asks you to be in your country for 2 years. But you can actually do that in other countries. So, for instance, you can spend 1 year maybe in the UK, and then you come back to Nigeria, or you spend 2 years in the UK. It does not affect you. All they're interested in is that you leave the US after your fellowship, after the 6 weeks. Please leave the US. Thank you. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to ask Olubenga Ogumbowale to please take the next question. Talks about resilience. As strong as leaders, we need that resilience to keep pushing, and so it's going to answer the question on resilience as a leader. Olubenga, please kindly take the virtual stage.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi.
Right. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so please make me a call so that I can share my screen.
Okay, all right. Please kindly give us a few minutes. Yes, Franklin, I think you have something to say. So while we are trying to figure out that, kindly say something.
Hello, Sophia, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, I was going to talk about just a little bit of emphasis to those of us in the civic engagement track. Just like I initially stated, it's more about the impact than the money. So it's not really like a Dragon's Den kind of thing where you come and pitch your business. It's more about the impact you're giving. So if, for instance, your business is focused on the money aspect of it, you can chip in a CSR arm of your business that shows that you are concerned about things like climate action, things like the environment. If you are doing something like Uber, you are driving people to different destinations, right? You should be fully aware of the harm your business is causing the environment. You can't be ignorant of that fact. Your business is probably contributing to global warming. So you have to add, what are you doing? Both started this thing where they are planting 1 million seeds. So they understand the impact of the business on the environment. So they're intentionally planting 1 million seeds to grow, right? To take away the CO2. So as a business person, you have to be able to have a spin-off, a CSR project, a corporate social responsibility project that shows that you are aware, in case your business is causing any harm, you are aware of this harm, and this is what you're doing on the side to show that you're environmentally conscious. Because you'll be surprised the amount of attention the US people pay to environment and climate actions. They are very intentional about it. So in case you're doing anything around that, it's something you have to also consider. So thank you. Sophia,
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, Franklin. Look, Benga, please, are we set?
Oh, yes. I think
all right, please, can you go ahead?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you.
All right, fantastic. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. All right, okay. So let's get started. Once again, my name is Yali. I'm a 2019 fellow, and I want to dissect question number 6. So question number 6 is: strong leaders demonstrate resilience in the face of challenges. The repercussions of the COVID-19 global health pandemic, crisis, and conflict pose significant challenges, both globally and locally. How have we demonstrated resiliency during challenging times? What lessons have you learned from this experience, and how are you applying the lessons in your current work? Let's dissect this question. This question is a loaded question. What is a loaded question? A loaded question is any question that has some questions, right? So the first thing you have to do is you have to first dissect this question into the sub-questions. Then you have to caution, COVID-19, and then the 3 questions. It looks like one question, but it has 3 questions. How have you demonstrated resilience in challenging times? That's one question. What lessons have you learned from this experience? That's another question. And how are you applying these lessons in your current work? So what are the tips that I have for you? Split the main question into sub-questions and ensure you address every single sub-question. 2, seek to understand the keywords. It's not a problem if you know what resiliency means, right? Just Google it or check the dictionary, right? And then answer the question you've been asked. This is the important one, right? This question obviously is talking about your COVID experience, right? What you did during that experience, how you were able to react during that experience, the lessons you learned, right? But now imagine someone talking about how they struggled with poverty while growing up. As shocking as that sounds, that's what some people are going to do, right? They'll ask you what is the capital of Nigeria. Instead of saying Abuja, Abuja is the capital of Nigeria, you say, oh, there's a beautiful city, and you just irrelevant things. Focus. Answer the question that you're going to ask. Now, let me attempt to dissect the questions one by one, right? The sub-questions now, I've split the questions into 3 sub-questions. Now, what is resiliency? Resiliency is simply, resiliency is simply recovering quickly from difficulties, from toughness, right? So that resiliency means that you are able to bounce back, even when you're faced with a very difficult situation. Now, so question 1 is, how have you demonstrated resilience during challenging times? Now, what are the tips? First of all, what did you do at the onset of COVID? What did you? You need to focus on how you led your NGO or your business to respond. That's what your focus should be. Now, you have to ensure that your answer to this question is a continuation of the narrative is formed in the. There is one commonality that all fellows have. It is that their essays read like a good story. Question number 2 is a continuation of question number 1. Question number 3 is a continuation of question number 2. Don't introduce something that is new and unrelated to the work that you're doing. Do not. You do not want to appear as someone who's scatterbrained, right? Focus. So number 2, what lessons have you learned from this experience? What are the tips that I have for you here? First of all, deploy relevant quotes. So let me give an example. So let's say, what quotes are relevant to resiliency? Look at a quote like Robert Schuller, right? Robert Schuller once said, and I quote, tough times never last, but tough people do. right? That's a very fantastic quotable quote, right? You can even quote Game of Thrones. All right, chaos is a ladder. Look for relevant quotable quotes that can back up what you're trying to say. Now, focus on one or two key lessons, right? You must have learned something through COVID, except you were not active during COVID, or you didn't do something during COVID. Some of you did food right during COVID. Some of you organized trainings during COVID. What are those things that you did, and what are those lessons that you learned? Right? If you can share a case study of a beneficiary that addresses this lesson, if you are able to find a good case study, by all means. If you can't find a case study, focus on one or two key lessons, right? Just talk about those lessons. Number three, how are you applying these lessons in your current work? So what is the tip here? You want to mention concrete strategies that you're deploying in your organization due to lessons learned during COVID. Now, the key word here is concrete strategies. Concrete, right? You don't want to, for instance, some people might answer this question to say, oh, how are you applying these lessons? And now, because of COVID, we've learned that anything can happen, or that the work can end tomorrow. How is that a relevant lesson, right? But you can spin that same narrative and say that COVID has taught you that you should not put all your eggs in one basket. That it's important that a viable business should have multiple streams of income, right? That can be a valid lesson. It can be a valid lesson instead of saying that you're not sure whether the world will end tomorrow, right? You don't want that kind of lesson. Now, what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to attempt to share with you an actual answer. Right? If I were to apply for MWF again this year, for instance, if I were to apply, what would my answer look like, right? So I work on something just to give you guys an idea of what is expected of you, right? So let me tell you some questions. Let me tell you how to answer, right? How have you demonstrated resilience during challenging times? Now, the COVID-19 pandemic significantly affected the economy and triggered an unprecedented recession. Several SMEs in my community, especially schools, went broke overnight as incomes dried up. I was leading a web and app design agency at the time, and no one was interested in building websites or house. Our current clients were freezing maintenance services. We were broke too. In the midst of the turmoil, SMEs suddenly realized that loans and equity were not the only options and were very expensive options. We're giving out grants to support SMEs, but most SMEs, this inspired me to learn Grandmaster. Grandmaster is addressing the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic by helping people and groups to have access to grants and grant opportunities. Also, businesses that have been shut down as a result of the economic impact of COVID-19 have now been financially safeguarded by the grant services that Grandmaster offers. That's my answer to the first part. The second part, what about the lessons? 2 lessons. I've learned 2 lessons from this experience. Number 1, remote work is here to stay. Number 2, SME founders want to run their business, not write proposals. So the last part of this question now, 3 sub-questions. So the last part, application. How are we applying these lessons? COVID inspired us to adopt remote work. Our grant writers work remotely. 25% of our workforce currently work remotely, and we're able to recruit talented staff regardless of their physical distance from the office. Since learning that founders would rather hire grant writers than hire professionals, we have focused on SMEs with talented grant writers with experience in their industry. Ladies and gentlemen, my job is done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Olubenga. You were on fire, sir. Thank you so much. Would kindly appreciate that you shared the slides you just presented so that the applicants, yes, the applicants can understand more on your question. So to recap, Mr. Olubenga just, highlighted that in one question, there were several other questions. And that's very key as an applicant. When you read a question, try to analyze the question and pick out the necessary sub-questions under a question. Yes, at times, they don't even spell it out. But you can read it. When you read it, you see, it's not just one question I have to answer. And it's very important that you also, in as much as you're answering 3 questions in one question, make sure they are connected. Make sure they are all connected There is no, they're not separate. They're all connected, and there's a flow in your answer. Yes. So Mr. Benga, please, I would like to ask you there are questions. So Chiamaka is asking, what does livestock farming business and clothing business fall under?
When you say fall under, what do you mean exactly?
That is the track. The track.
That's business. Anything business is business and entrepreneurship. That's the track.
Okay. So Nas is asking, okay, Zigwe has answered. Jones Oluwatosin would like to have a clear understanding of the core differences between civic engagement and public management. Mr. Lubega, please, could you answer that?
Okay. So I think we have to start from like what all the tracks are, right? So the business track is focused on business. Civic engagement is focused more on NGOs, right? It's focused more on NGOs. People are either running an NGO, they're actually working at an NGO, right? The public management track is focused on people who are either already serving, right? Now, you don't necessarily have to be a politician, something like that. But if you're working, for the public good, like maybe you're working in a government parastatal, you're a politician, right? Or you're running for office, or you're, think about people who work maybe in the prison service, for instance. I remember, someone from the 2019 course. I remember we had someone who was working from the Nigerian Correctional Service. They don't call it prison service. Apologies. I also remember there was someone who was working with Lagos State, I think Ministry of Health, right? So those are the people that were in the public management track. So I hope that helped.
All right, thank you so much. So before I finally ask our last speaker to tell us more to speak on the last question, I would like to, this is for those who are watching us via YouTube, please subscribe to our channel so that you can get first-hand information of any event that the MWF association, the Alumni Association has coming up. And also, if you're not on the Yali network, please join the Yali network. The Yali network has diverse resources that could help your personal and your professional development. It's very, very important. Please join the Yali network. All you need to do is go on Google and Google search Yali network. It also gives you an edge. As a Yali network, it also gives you an egg to be considered for the application. It's just like an advantage for you as a Yali network member. So go on Google, search the Yali network member and join. And don't forget to also follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay in touch with some important information that will be coming up. So yes, lastly, I'll be introducing the last speaker, Mr. Timi Olagunju. Mr. Timi Olagunju, please kindly take the virtual stage.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, Sophia. I'm Timi Olagunju, and I think the previous speakers have done a lot of justice to the specifics of the questions. And so I will try to, when you are the last speaker, you have the privilege to summarize all that the other speakers have spoken. However, because of the uniqueness of the questions in this context, right? So I wouldn't have the privilege of summarizing, but having to deal with the question head on. And so the question that I'm to deal with particularly, I'm going to type in the question in for us to all see the question. I guess we can say it. Basically around a quote, Nelson Mandela's approach to leadership, where he was able to bring people all together. And, in that context, also ensure that he walked around diverse, he walked around diverse differences in order to achieve a common goal. You can see the question. So the question basically, after stating all that, is telling us to describe a situation where you, now in this context, used your leadership skills to resolve a conflict or disagreement. And then how do you encourage respectful discussion when working with people from different backgrounds, identities, or perspective? So you can see that question now. Like my brother, being rightly stated, some of these questions are double barrel questions in that context. However, for time and in context of the time frame that we have, I'm going to dissect this question from a certain approach that I use. I'm a 2015 fellow, and the questions always change each year. The past 7 years, it has changed. But one thing that I discovered is the fact that the approaches sometimes never changes. And that's the key thing I'm going to apply here in this context. So in seeing this question, the double barrel question, first thing is to understand what is the nature of the question. Now, when you look at this question carefully, one thing that strikes you is the fact that it is also a very dangerous question. Because like a previous fellow, one of my colleagues, a fellow has rightly stated, around issues of diversity, right? And that question seems similar to this question. But where the difference lies is that this talks about diversity in leadership role as distinct from diversity in your personal or professional life, right? And so it's important to see these questions for what it is: diversity in a leadership role as distinct from diversity in your personal or professional life. And so in understanding the nature of that question, it's important to then look at what are the intrinsic goals, what are the hidden or covert goals that this question seeks to achieve. So one of the key things that comes to mind for me is that this question seeks to identify how you are able to work with others of difference to achieve a common goal. That's the first thing that I think this question is trying to look at. The second goal that this question is trying to achieve is how you were able to handle conflict or conflict of opinion in achieving that goal, not just as a professional, not just in your personal life, but as a leader, right? So we understand the nature of the question, then we can then understand what are the goals behind this question. Very important. Now, when we then understand the goals behind the question, we can then now try to rephrase the question in a way that is simpler for us to be able to understand, to do some soul searching on. And so we can rephrase this question to say, it's asking, how did I, as a leader, work with others of difference? And by difference, don't limit your mind. Open your mind to difference in opinion, difference in color, difference in orientation, sexual orientation, difference in tribe, difference in culture, difference in background, difference in age group. How did I work with others of difference to achieve a common goal? That's the simple thing this question is stating in that sense. As a leader, right? And so in order to think out practical examples of situations where you've been in, where you have worked with others of difference to achieve a common goal as a leader, you need to think through your examples, and that requires some introspection. And the way to introspect is to look at some common keywords, like my brother being rightly stated. Keywords, that particular click is an important context. Keywords, what are the keywords there? First keyword is difference. right? Second keyword is goal. Third keyword is leadership, right? So in this context of the question, we're looking at difference in terms of what are the synonyms to difference here? The synonyms of difference could be distance, disagreement, misunderstanding, dispute, contrast, right? And so in that context, when you are thinking through practical examples that you've worked with differences, you need to think through those synonyms in that sense. Synonyms, issues that have involved distinction, that it was a distinct situation. Is it an issue that involved a disagreement? Or is it an issue that is just a dispute-related issue or a contrast from what you have been used to as a person, right? Difference. Two, goal. When you look at the word goal, you're looking at synonyms like accomplish. Where have you accomplished targets? Where have you tried to design projects or programs, right? In that sense. You look at synonyms like aim. Has there been a situation where you aim for a particular goal or you aim for a particular goal post as a leader, and then difference or disagreement came in, or there was a contrast in terms of opinion or personality or color or background or age groups? Key words. Now, the third one is leadership, right? So when you are thinking through your examples, doing a soul search into your examples, you are looking at leadership. Remember, this question is not just about difference to achieve a goal as an individual, it's talking about leadership. So in leadership, you're talking of teamwork. Where have you worked with a team? Is it a team as an NGO? It could be a team in a business. It may not even be an NGO or a structured business. It could be a project, right? A simple community service that you do for free, right? And so you need to, and then you took up a leadership role, or you took up a role that involves team members. So those are the things you need to start thinking around. And when you start thinking around these circumstances, you can be able to puzzle together your experiences in a way that you can situate your experiences to tell a story. So I would round off with an example that, I've been able to kind of, I made it a very simple example, because simple personal example, because I want to prove a point at the end of it, that it does not have to be anything out of the blues. It can be as simple as this example. So in 2016, we were tasked with organizing a civic program called Democracy in Action for public schools in Ibadan. It was difficult to get principals of schools to buy into it because we had schools that represented different religion and gender. There were Muslim schools, there were Christian schools, and there were also girls and boys schools. So it was difficult. It was a difficult task to bring them together under one umbrella, and safety issues was a concern. So as team lead of that particular project in 2016, I decided to search for partners, that partners with the schools that the schools can trust and that are answerable to. So we decided to partner with the Ministry of Education, with the House of Assembly, representing each constituency within Ibadan. Guess what? With that endorsement of religious groups and also of the Ministry of Education and of the clerk of the House, the school principals decided to work with us on the program, right? And trusted us more to deal with those differences that could have been an impediment to the success of the program. And with that, we had over 40 schools participate across different groups. The program became adopted as a state program. Now, that is a simple storyline, but it speaks to certain core thematic frameworks in that question. So what I will say in essence is, from my own experience, in rounding off, I discovered that there were some questions that I could write a lot about, and there were some questions that I didn't really have much to write about. But I was true to myself as much as I could be, right? To dig through the questions, the key experiences that matter to the context of where I am and where I am headed towards. And so for some questions you may have answers to, just be as practical as possible. And those you don't have so much answers to, think deep and think through. Aim to be true to your leadership story and to yourself. Mandela Washington Fellowship is just the beginning. It's not the end of the road. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. I felt like I was relearning, relearning all over again. Thank you so much, Mr. Timmy. Thank you, thank you. Other questions please, if you have questions, ask now. We have limited time to be here. It's amazing. I felt like I was relearning. So before I officially open the ground for questions, I would also like to chip in that it's very important to talk about yourself. Honestly, sell yourself. Don't use the we word, use the I word. What did you do? It's about you. It's not really about your team right now. It's about you. So I did this, I did that. So you're not being overconfident, and you're not you're allowed to toot your own horn. So I'll give an example for the last question. So for me, all my essays were all about professional development. So I needed growth. So that was the story I wrote about. My theme was on growth as an individual and as a young professional. So I talked about my growth. I was really honest about it. I talked about my weaknesses, and I said this was how the fellowship would help me. And so when it came to the last question, I used an example as an ALX beneficiary of their program. And in ALX is the African Leadership Accelerator Program, where you meet people from diverse African countries like Zambia. And there was actually an issue, and I just used that and explain how that, I have interacted with other Africans. And then there was an issue where I stepped in as a mediator, and, and I resolved that issue. And as a group, I was the one who put in place how we should communicate with each other, knowing that we are from diverse backgrounds and that conflict was going to happen one way or the other. So I was like, I did this, I did that. So it's all about you. What did you do in that position? What did you do? It's not really about your team. Yes, you can work with a team, or you had worked with a team, but what did you do as a person in that team? That's very, 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 very important. What did you do? So I'll go into the questions. Also, I just shared a link on the Zoom for you to join the WhatsApp group chat. The Alumni Association would like to go further to mentor applicants who are interested and ready to pursue their Mandela Washington application. So like we said, we're not saying you'll be selected. This is not an assurance that you'll be selected, but rather would want to work with you on this journey and give you the best tips that we can as an association. And don't forget to join the alumni network. Don't forget to join the Yali network. Be a Yali member, and you can use the resources to your advantage. So Balale is asking, can I use a religious scenario as a church leader resolving conflicts of opinions perspective to achieve a goal? Mr. Timmy, this is for you.
Yes, you can actually. Just ensure that, in that context, that the story aligns. Because if you've been talking about doing work in the healthcare sector, right, like public health, and then that particular story has to do with something, that has nothing to do with the storyline that you have been, following through, there might be a challenge in that sense. So just be true to your story in that sense and ensure that it aligns, but definitely you can.
Thank you so much. Do we have questions? If you have a question, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening. I have a question. Can we hear me, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm not sure but I don't know if there's a space for where we have to write a personal statement, and because I don't think anybody has talked about that. And if there is, how do we go about it? Because I know it can be really tricky when you have to write personal statements, especially for this kind of application.
Yes, Satimi, please kindly answer the question.
Well, I do not think, well, when I wrote my application, I didn't say anywhere, but I think they basically distill what your personal statement, it actually is reflected in those questions you are answering already, right? So it's not like the usual application for postgraduate programs where you have to shun in a different personal statement to support whatever. The story itself is your personal journey or your personal statement. And that's why they're asking those questions, basically, to be able to squeeze them out of you. I think that's, over to you, Sophia. I don't know if you can stay.
All right. Do you have your question been answered? Is that what you're asking?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Thank you, Sophia. Yes, you're welcome. Okay, some persons were asking how they could use the third person pronoun when they're writing their story. Okay, so for instance, I want to say, I am a youth development practitioner. So what you would say is, Sophia is a youth development practitioner. She is interested in this. She has over 5 years of experience in this. So this is how you structure your biography or personal statement you're being asked. Because I see people ask that. Yes, please do.
So I will advise that you use third person when writing your professional summary or short professional statements on your CV. But in your essay questions, please write in first person. I did so and so. If you did it with a team, together with my team, we were able to blah, blah, blah. You will have a problem with your flow if when writing your essay questions, you begin to write, Kede did this. It doesn't sit right, and you're telling your personal story, right? You're telling your personal story. So use first person when answering your essay questions. But in your CV, where you have your short professional summary at the beginning of your CV, yes, this is this person who has previous experience doing blah, 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 that works.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kede. Yes, Dalia, please. I hope I did not murder your name. Yes, kindly go on. Ask a question.
No, it's correct. I hope you can hear me too.
Yes, we can.
Okay. My question is still back on the personal, so the third person pronoun. That's the question. In the example we were given, they said, example, manage so and so. Is it also part of saying that she managed so and so, or we have to write trained in so and so, and then cut the sentence and continue, or we can now use the she, he, and all that. Because in the example, they just said from manage, rather than saying I manage, they asked us to use manage so and so.
Oh, yes, you can write that. So you manage, what's this word? What's this? You manage, not you. You just yes. So that means when you're starting your sentence, you're using managed. That is managed, supported. Yes, words like that. Yes,
but
engaged.
do you confuse after that you're saying she, or you just have to keep cutting the sentence and starting again, just to keep the flow of the managed that you started with, or you can start with she managed, maybe she managed an outreach where she, that kind of sentence.
Answer your questions in first person.
Yes, please go ahead.
Leave third person alone in your essay question.
Okay, is this in your essay question?
Honestly, advise that you
on your CV,
what?
Right?
Your CV.
Yes.
Your CV, yes, third person.
So in your CV, use third person, managed, supported, use those words.
And then she, like the company.
Organized. Don't use she. Organized a training session for youth in a rural community. Where do you get?
Where what? Please continue that sentence. Where?
So, where?
Hold on, let me.
Where over 500
let me read a line.
youths. Yes, you get. Where over 500 youths learned this, that. Then you talk about the result of it.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Kede, you want to say something?
Are you clear though?
Yeah.
So I want to read a line of something for you. So if you said, okay, this is just a line from a CV. You can say something like, facilitated 5 different counseling sessions with 20 mothers on breastfeeding.
Hello?
Please hello.
Dr. Kede, we are not hearing you.
Hello. Okay, so I think before Dr. Kede come, you have a question. Please ask.
Okay, my question is, does the CV have a certain criteria or a certain number of page that is required for the CV, or it's an open something that's whatever number of pages your CV is up to, you can actually make use of it?
Okay, I think it is open board. Satimi, if you're on the call, kindly answer.
Please, would you be kind enough to repeat that question, please?
You know, what I mean is, you know, some applications, they do give a limit for the number of pages of CV. So I am asking if this, in this context, if there is a number of page or there is a particular format or criteria of CV they need.
Well, if there is a certain number of page, it would actually be spelled out there in that sense. But if it's not spelled out, anything between 2 pages averagely, 3, should suffice. But it's usually spelled out if you actually the number in that sense, yeah.
Yes, thank you. So I think the maximum, I think the general one, the maximum limit would be 2 pages, and the minimum would be a page. Yeah, so that would be that. So thank you so much. Other questions, please, if there are questions and you really want to ask, the WhatsApp group chats. The WhatsApp group chats would be, no, you're not required to submit referees. You're not required to submit referees. So the WhatsApp group chat link is available for everyone to join, where you can ask further questions and we can also follow you on your application journey. So we would like to say thank you. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for your time. And we wish you the best in your application. Don't forget to join the WhatsApp group chat. Follow us on Instagram and subscribe on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to also join the Yali network. Join the Yali network. It gives you access to so many opportunities that the US government has to offer. Thank you once again for joining. Thank you. Thank you. And stay tuned, there'll be another session. So stay tuned to our social media platform, Instagram, YouTube, WhatsApp, and LinkedIn and Facebook. I would like to especially thank the speakers Dr. Kede Zugwe, thank you so much. Satimi, Mr. Olubenga, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this section.
You're welcome.
Thank you very, very much. Deeply grateful.
Waiting with this one, no, size.
Yeah, businessman. So goodbye to everyone.
Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for putting this together. Sophia and team, lovely. Loved it. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Sophia. You did well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to join the WhatsApp group chat so that we can continue the journey from here.
Don't marry, go on marry. But no one marry. Thank God, punish and tax if they can't marry.